Box. It's time for our podcast.
It's Friday then. It's Saturday, Sunday. What?
You're listening to the Pitwall Girls podcast, hosted by Darlene and Adriana.
Hello, we are back for another episode after Saudi Arabia, and we are definitely going to talk all about Ollie Bearman. But today we have a special guest co-hosting with me, Nako, like Taco. Hi.
Hi.
So we have a fellow F1 fangirl joining us. So kind of funny story. We actually don't know each other. This is our first time meeting. So I love this like hot seat, a guest co-hosting. We have a mutual friend and she put us in contact. Do you want to say the story of how this came about?
Yeah, I mean, I just randomly met this girl at a bachelorette party of a really good friend of mine, and I was just talking about how I had to watch the Bahrain Grand Prix in the morning at like 9 a.m. or whatever it was, even though I was very hungover from our bachelorette party, duties the day before, and I was talking to her about it. She's like, oh, my friend has a F1 podcast. I think she might be looking for a co-host. You should reach out. And then literally within the next few days, we organized ourselves and made this happen. So I'm super excited. Thanks so much for having me on.
Of course, I'm so excited. And I think I heard that you're a Lando fangirl. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. McLaren's definitely my team. But I will say I'm Japanese. So us Japanese people, we need to support all of our Japanese athletes. So I am also a Yuki fan, although it's been more difficult this year to be a Yuki fan because he's like kind of all over the place. But
is it difficult?
Yeah.
Is it difficult because he's not doing well, or is it difficult because of his on-track behavior?
I'm just like, kind of grow up a little bit, Yuki. Come on, like, get it together,
Yes, definitely. I love Yuki, but I was kind of disappointed in him. Well, we all know what happened last race. I talked about what happened in Bahrain. Yeah. I'm like, crazy. Okay, So Lando and Yuki are your drivers. You're a McLaren girly. Have you ever been to a race?
I did get to go to Circuit of America, so the Austin Grand Prix in 2022. It was a blast.
Nice.
Highly recommend it. Yeah.
Definitely on my bucket list. Okay, speaking of bucket list, do you have a bucket list Grand Prix like must attend?
Yeah, I would definitely say probably Monza, just for the vibes. Yeah, Monza seems like a good one. Also Silverstone, even though the weather's always terrible. Like, I love the historic tracks.
Okay, we will plan Silverstone because that is on my bucket list. Like, I must experience it.
Yeah. Yes. We gotta see a Lando win in Silverstone,
I would cry. I would actually just be a mess. Like, that would be amazing. I cried when he was leading the race, like tears.
I know. Okay, and they were like leading quali on Friday. I was like, yes, and then I was like early in qualifying.
I'm super superstitious, and I was like, oh, should I post that he's doing well or not? I'm like, realistically, Max is gonna win, so it doesn't really matter here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so should we jump into the race recap?
Let's do it.
Saudi Arabia, nothing too technical, but pure shock for Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, that was like, I before the race even started, what was even happening, I saw like in the race preview that they were the cameras were all over Alpine, like, oh, the engineers are doing some last minute things. They're like, oh, what's going on? So yeah, that was really unfortunate to see.
Yeah, I was definitely super focused on Ollie and what was happening with him. But then I realized that they were like, oh, and Pierre's about to make his way to like his grid spot. But it was definitely a delayed. And as soon as the race started, that team radio, like, box, we got to retire the car.
Box, yep.
I just feel so bad for Pierre because he left AlphaTauri/BCarb and to go to a French team, and it's just not been going his way at all.
Right. And, Piastri was maybe going to go to Alpine, and, I think it worked out a lot better for him at McLaren. So I'm sure Gasly's not pleased about that. That could have been his spot at McLaren.
Yeah, definitely. That is such a good point to consider. Well, Alpine has definitely been restructuring their team. They have like 3 new technical directors, so hopefully they get it together. But it's not easy to learn somebody else's car and just fix it. But I mean, last season we saw McLaren with an awesome comeback, so hopefully the same thing will will happen for them, mainly because of Pierre.
Yeah,
Ocon,
definitely.
I want the best for all the drivers, but Ocon is painted as such a like a bad guy that I'm like, yeah. But also, it's super shocking how they got all this investment money from like Travis
Hmm.
Kelce and Ryan
Like the Ryan
Reynolds,
Reynolds, yeah.
right? I wonder how they're feeling that they invested on the worst team on the grid.
Yeah, I don't know like what their expectation was going into it, but yeah, I don't know. I think from Alpine side, they're just trying to sell off more shares, kind of reduce their exposure. I think Renault, is kind of a failed experiment at this point. But it is interesting. I was reading that when they're, having all these people turn over and new positions starting on the technical side of things, they're trying to mimic a bit what McLaren did last year. So McLaren also kind of replaced one of their large technical positions with three other positions to make it more of a horizontal structure. And that
Yeah.
worked really well for McLaren. So maybe we'll see the same thing in Alpine, like, by the Austrian Grand Prix will just come out of nowhere, but it's kind of hard to see that happening.
Yeah, we will see what happens. Okay, then what else happened in the race? Did I even take notes? Yeah, the next thing I have on my notes is Lance Stroll
I
triggering the
mean,
safety car, which was pretty early on in the race. Let's pull up some of my notes.
yeah, it was
Uh,
really early on. I forget what lap it was, but super early. I think, everybody predicted that there was
mhm.
definitely going to be at least one safety car in this race. It's a street track. I think there's always a lot of penalties or like a lot of safety cars and yellow flags and stuff here. I don't know if anyone was expecting it that early. I think it was too early to affect a lot of strategy stuff.
I
I mean,
agree.
obviously
Yeah.
we saw there like two strategies, but obviously one was going to be a lot better. They were even saying that the hard tires could have probably lasted the whole race if
Mm-hmm.
they wanted to. So even though there was an early pit stop, it didn't really affect people that much because the hard tires just lasted till the end of
Yeah.
the race, no problem.
I mean, Lewis, Lando, and Joe made it on the medium tires till almost like three-fourths of the race, and they were they
Yeah,
were they were
they were
chilling.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So Stroll into the wall, into the barriers. Insane. I think that will be my favorite team radio of this race when his team's like, "Can you bring it back?" He's like, "I'm in the fucking wall," and
It's
that's
like,
just
what
so
do you
crazy.
expect?
Like on F1 TV, you could see what the drivers are doing. So are the engineers not following along on the actual video cam? Like they're just looking at the data.
I mean, I think they have the video up though. So I think they just wanted to ask him if the car was okay. Like, are you okay?
Definitely
Is the
not.
car okay? But yeah, no, that was kind of silly to ask him. He was like literally in the wall. There's no way he could have moved it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like kind of an avoidable mistake. I think I heard some people saying it was more of a rookie mistake. He should have been able to save it.
Yeah. And he is
Yeah.
nowhere near a rookie.
No, he's been in F1 for a while now.
Yeah, well, you could count on him or Logan to have these crashes. So
I know.
I love, I mean, I'm always glad that they are okay, but I love it when there's a safety flag because a safety, like yellow flag, red flag, it really messes with the strategy. In this case, like you said, yeah, it was too early. I was hoping there would be another one towards the end. I was hoping that this yellow flag would become a red flag and then everybody who pitted was just like screwed and then Lewis and Lando would have had the upper hand. But obviously
Yeah, and
that.
we've seen that happen before in
Mm-hmm.
different Grand Prix where, they pit right before they red flag it, and then the people who pit, I think that happened to George Russell last year. So that sometimes happens. But yeah, I think, the people who stayed out, so Lando, Hamilton, Joe, and Hulkenberg all stayed out on mediums.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, they were probably just banking on another safety car so that they could get a quick pit stop at the end, which just never happened. So it's unfortunate. It seems like Lando was happy with it. He was like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the strategy we picked. We were banking on a safety car. It didn't work, but we're happy with the car. Hamilton was not happy at all. He was really
Never
upset.
happy.
He
Yeah.
does not like staying out. He definitely wanted to be pitted. So it's interesting that Mercedes always keeps Hamilton out, even though he never wants to be on the wrong tire.
Yeah, super interesting. Also, George has just been doing so much better than Lewis. I don't know if the car just suits him a whole lot better. If Lewis is kind of like, all I want to do is win the World's Drivers' Championship. And if I'm not going to do that, I don't really care where I end up.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
is he washed? I don't know.
Or is he washed? Yeah.
Like washed? Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, last year we heard a lot from the team that, Lewis was testing things out for the team. He, was running a heavier setup just to like test new things to try and like make more development and improvement in the car. This year we're not hearing that as much, so I feel like that's not why he's slower than George. It might just be that he's not doing as well.
Yeah, I definitely think George has that hunger, and that's all very important. Like, Lewis is definitely a better driver than George, all that experience, but not right now. And they always say you're just as good as your last race. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I will say though that Hamilton did a really good job fending off Piastri for so long. I think Piastri was behind Hamilton for like 20 something laps. He tweeted, Oscar tweeted like, I'm like a Mercedes rear wing expert now,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, he was not expecting to be stuck behind Lewis for like 25 laps.
Yeah, and it didn't end up mattering that much with the order at the end, but I mean, it was really impressive. I think the only reason why he was able to stay in front, I think McLaren had the faster car, but just his car placement, defending, he just had the edge on Piastri. So obviously he has more experience. He's the better driver. He's not washed. Like I said that jokingly, but
No, I love the jokes. Something interesting I kept hearing throughout the race was that it didn't really matter DRS for the McLaren cars because they just had no speed when it came to DRS. So that was super interesting. How does your car not work with DRS?
Yeah, I think so. McLaren since last year has run a higher downforce setup than a lot of the other cars.
I love how technical you are. Please teach us.
I mean, I'm no expert, obviously, but like with my just general understanding of what downforce is, it's like the force that keeps the car down, sticks it to the ground, right? So for McLaren, that means they're really good in like high speed corners. That's the downforce is what keeps the car to the ground and makes them faster on those high speed corners. But it means that there's more drag because the car's lower to the ground, right? So with more drag, which is what DRS is for, is drag reduction system. So because they have a higher downforce setup, they have more drag on the straight, so they have less straight line speed. And so that's probably why the DRS isn't working as effectively for them because they're just like are running a higher drag setup than some of the other cars. But I thought it was also interesting that Hamilton in his radio was saying that he thought Lando had a lot of straight line speed. So it was kind of confusing. But yeah, I think in my just general understanding of what downforce is, that's probably why the DRS isn't as effective.
That was our Formula 101 of the day. We just learned something new. And yeah, Lewis loves to throw out like what other cars are doing. Like, wow, that car
He's
is
always
a
like,
rocket ship. Exactly. Yeah. Well, you mentioned George Russell earlier, and I have a bone to pick with him because I like George. I really do. I like them all. But then when George starts being a little tattletale and teacher's pet, that's where we go off. And he was the one who reported on the radio that Lando jumped the start. It was Lando jump start. Yeah. Which we did see his car go forward and stop. It didn't get picked up as a jump start because the transmitter wasn't far enough, so he didn't get a penalty. But yeah, everybody was so ready for Lando to get a penalty. Then that would have been on brand for Lando's luck to have been leading the race, potentially getting podium, and then getting a 5 or 10 second penalty, which the stewards were not very kind with the penalties, giving K-Mag 2 10-second penalties for things that should have been just 5 seconds.
Yeah, the consistency with penalties is always kind of weird to see in Formula One. I feel like they're not usually very consistent. For the Lando one, I did hear that it's sort of consistent with how they ruled it for Vettel in like 2019 or something, where he also had a similar thing. But like the rule says that if you're moving when the lights are going out, then that's a jump start. And Lando was definitely moving. He might not have moved all the way outside the box, but he was moving.
Yeah.
But probably like the spirit of the rule is just to avoid people from getting like a jump start in a lead. And in his case, he like stopped and it made him come out slower.
Yeah, it made his stop worse.
It didn't give him an advantage. So maybe that's why they chose not to.
Yeah. I think
go
it was
with the
fair.
Penalty. Yeah. I think so too.
It was fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, with the Magnussen penalties, yeah, I think the one to watch is the overtaking off track. So we got a 10-second penalty. Like one of the penalties was, I think, kind of justified in that he did squeeze Albon into a corner. Albon in a post-race interview was like, "Oh, it was
it's
a
a
racing incident."
right?
So that could have gone either way. But the other one was he, kind of overtook Yuki sort of off track. His four wheels were off the track. That definitely would have been something that we saw like a 5-second penalty for in the past. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Full 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to talk about K-Mag at all, but like I
Go
think,
ahead. The floor is yours.
The fact that he got 2 penalties, right? Like getting ahead of some of these people, and then just to create this giant DRS train for like so many laps that nobody could get ahead of him. Everybody was stuck behind him, leaving Hulkenberg, who stayed out on the mediums, to get like a full pit stop amount of time. So essentially Magnussen was able to create like a 20-second gap between him and Hulkenberg, so that when Hulkenberg pitted, he still came out in front of Magnussen, and nobody was able to overtake him. And Hulkenberg got a point.
His own yellow flag. Yeah. His own safety. Yeah.
His own safety car. Yeah, it was crazy. So that meant that Haas got a point, which for those teams, it's like so important to get like that 1 point. So yeah, I'm curious to see if other teams will try and use this strategy, like have a sacrificial lamb, have one car, like hit everyone, get the penalties. It doesn't even matter. Hold up the line.
We've definitely seen that happen in the past. And, there has to be some sort of regulation for that because it's not fair. I mean, right now it's illegal, quote unquote. So honestly, I would have voted K-Mag as my driver of the day if I hadn't voted for Ollie, because it's just nice because it's Haas, like,
What a team player, Like his race was done. He already had the penalties. And then he just kind of let Hulkenberg go. And then when Hulkenberg came back in the race, Magnussen sped up too, so then his penalties actually didn't end up influencing his race classification that much.
Yeah. But isn't there a reason why you need to hit a certain delta so things like that don't happen?
I mean, I think so. So people were saying that he was probably going a little bit too slow on the corners and that it could have been dangerous. But other people are saying, I mean, if he was going so slow and you could overtake him, why didn't you just overtake him? So, I mean,
that is true. It's a hard track to overtake, but not being able to overtake for 5-10 laps, like, come on now.
I feel like that's more on the other drivers than Kevin Magnussen. I think he did everything he needed to do. He didn't really
It is a team sport at the end of the day, so.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else that we want to talk about from the race?
I feel like we covered everything from the race. I mean, it was a good race. Like, Verstappen won. It was a good race,
yeah.
But it was still good. There's still stuff to talk about in between. I think, at the end of the day, the race, I think the gap, Verstappen to Checo, was around 13 seconds or so, but that's actually more than what was actually happening because Checo got a 5-second penalty for unsafe release in the pit lane during that pit stop. So it was actually more like a 7 or 8 second gap. So that's a closer gap to Verstappen than we've seen recently.
Yeah.
So
during the first race, there was like a record for 22 or 23 seconds of Max winning. He had the biggest gap of any winner. So that was insane. And like I've said before, I'm fine if Max wins every single race. Do I want that to happen? Of course not. But I don't want Max to win by a minute and 30 seconds. I want some action, some competition. But yeah, our podium was Max, Checo, and Charles. And then Oscar did great, P4. So if Max isn't in the equation, he would have been on podium. And I am predicting him to be on podium for his home race in Australia next round.
Ooh.
Yeah. So hopefully good things for him. And then, oh gosh, we got to talk about Ollie Bearman. So F2 superstar. He is part of the Ferrari Drivers Academy. For those who don't know, our dear Carlos had appendicitis. So he had been, oh my gosh, Carlos is doing pre-practice with like a 39-degree fever and he's throwing up and everybody's like, he's so great, like how he's doing all that. He's so sick. But yeah, he was really sick. He had appendicitis, so had to go in for emergency surgery. And I mean, he was at the race. He limped in on Sunday 24 hours
I mean,
after
that's crazy.
surgery.
I don't know that much about appendicitis, but I feel like after a surgery like that, to be in the Formula One paddock the next day seems kind of crazy. It's like, Carlos, go rest. Like,
Yeah, you're
chill.
like in the desert. The heat is wild. There's sand. Like, you have an open wound. What are you doing?
Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah, smooth operator. I loved his post. He's like, just had a smooth operation.
I saw that, yeah.
Yes, so for those who don't know what we're talking about, Ferrari had to use their reserve driver, who's actually an F2 driver and wasn't able to compete in F2 because, he had to step up to the plate.
And he had gotten pole in F2 also.
Yes,
like,
he had gotten
was doing
pole.
well, and yeah.
Yeah, he had gotten pole in F2. And I think everybody listening right now knows that Ferrari has invested so much into Charles Leclerc, and Charles is their golden boy. Well, I would say none of that compares to what Ollie will be for them in the future. They've been investing in him a lot. And like, Ollie is building up his brand. His name is Oliver Bearman, and he has a super cute YouTube channel where he does like the bare necessity vlog.
Really? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, and it's like the little jingle. So he's definitely been building his brand. He has a cult following. Ferrari knows that Ollie's going to be their golden boy, and he proves that he deserves to be that golden boy for them in the future. So he did not make it to Q3 by like 0.3 seconds. Yeah, he almost knocked out Lewis, who will be taking that seat next year. So that was pretty impressive to see. And then he didn't even just get a point. He ended up in P7 getting 6 points for himself and Ferrari. So now he's on, the leadership board. And what's crazy is that now Pierre is number 21 on the championship. Like, there's supposed to be 20 F1 drivers, and Pierre is 21. Like, he on TV, and they're like, and on the third page we have Pierre Gasly.
Sad. That's a sad moment for him.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, but Ollie did so great, at the very end, where like Norris and Hamilton on his tail, he was able to keep going. He didn't lose pace at the end. His tires weren't falling off. I mean, I know there's some caveats to it. He was placed in a Ferrari, so it's a pretty nice car to be put in. But the car was pretty much set up for Carlos's specifications at that point. It was already like Parc Fermé, so they're not allowed to like do too much to the car after FP2 or something.
Yeah.
And so it was already sort of set up for
he could barely even
Ollie's
change
a lot
like
taller.
Yeah, he was complaining about the headrest. He's like, it has too much padding. But yeah, can you imagine if the car was actually set up for him? He would have been fighting for podium. I mean, Leclerc was on the podium.
I know.
I'm impressed.
And, there's a caveat that it is like more of a track where there was no like tire degradation. And that's where like rookies usually struggle the most. Like Piastri last year, that was the main thing he needed to work on, was like making his tires last. And so because this race didn't have any of that, is probably partially why he was able to do so well. So we'll see how well he would do on a different track. But I feel like generally just keeping it out of the wall in a first full Formula One race is really incredible.
Yeah, well, hopefully he will have a seat. I am very sad that we don't have a full-time rookie this season, and that these F2 drivers, they work so hard and then they don't end up with an F1 seat. So maybe he will get one of the Haas seats in 2025.
Yeah, I think that's what people are saying. And he does have a few like FP1 sessions scheduled with Haas this year.
How exciting.
So yeah, we'll see. And then, maybe by the time that he's been in Haas for a couple of years, maybe Lewis is going to retire and that seat opens up.
I think Lewis will be there for just 2 years.
Yeah, I can't imagine him being in the car for another 5 years, It's a tough sport.
Yeah, I mean, Alonso is doing it, but that man is just a different breed.
Yeah, I mean, that's just Alonso.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to ask you, do you have like an oh my god moment of the race, something that actually made you say like oh my god, and then something that was like WTF is going on here, and just like your overall favorite moment?
Well, my oh my god moment was kind of near the beginning, where Ollie like almost crashed with Yuki, And, he was trying to, like, be aggressive and stuff. And I was like, don't do that on Yuki. Like, Yuki is a liability.
Yeah.
Like, if Yuki has an opportunity to crash into you, he will. He doesn't care. So that was like, oh my gosh, I hope it's fine. And then it was fine after that. And Ollie had a really good race. But that was my one, like, oh no, like, is this already over kind of moment.
Okay. My oh my God was when Lando was leading.
That too, yeah. That might be my fave. That might be my fave moment. Was when Lando was leading. I knew it was only a fleeting moment. I knew it wasn't gonna last, but
it lasted a few laps.
Yeah, I mean, if there had been a safety car when he was still leading, I think something could have happened there. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it didn't. Max was our winner. It's okay, but we'll stay hopeful. I'm predicting Lando will win race number 4 because I'm superstitious. So 4 is his number.
Wait. Is that Suzuka?
Yeah.
Or it is.
Okay.
That'll be a good one.
Yeah. And then WTF moment, probably when Lance crashed, like.
Yeah. For me, it was the Gasly thing. I was like, what is going on? Like, why?
Yes, I actually did say WTF there. Yeah.
I think I literally said, like, what is happening? Like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
I don't know if you can swear on this podcast, but.
I never know. I always say, I don't even know if I can swear. So you just feel free to swear.
Okay. You can edit me out later.
Beep. And then I don't know what my fave moment of the race was.
I think, Lando leading for a little bit was really exciting. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of like it was a fun race, but it wasn't like something super crazy happened. So.
Yeah. I think my fave moment was just having Ollie race overall and doing well.
Oh, you know what? My fave moments of the weekend are just every time they pan to Ollie's dad.
Yes.
Had this mixture of expression of like proud, but also terrified of
so
like his
stressed.
son. His 18-year-old son in an F1 car. Yeah, so he looked so stressed, and I think that might have been my favorite moments of the weekend.
Yeah, Ollie, like I said, he has such a cult following. So I was on TikTok looking, and he's actually known as giving the best hugs, like the bear hugs. And then I started paying attention to how he hugs people, and he just like clamps both arms like super tight, like snuggles his head in.
Wow. Does he have like an Asian? He has like all of his PR stuff, like just everything's on brand. Like...
Yeah, everything is on brand for him. I don't know who his agent is, but yeah, great job there. You should go watch one of his little vlogs.
I will after this, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, should we jump into the gossip news and all the current events surrounding the paddock?
Sure. I mean, there's so much going on right now.
There is so much going on. And of course, Christian Horner keeps being in the limelight right now. He once said something that was taken out of context, but it was like, Taylor Swift will be lucky if she could get into the paddock now. I think he will be lucky if he can get into the paddock in the future. Like, so much is happening. So as you guys know, he's had his investigation. The investigation is over, but the drama surrounding it continues this weekend. The employee who launched the complaint against him was let go from Red Bull. So, that just spiked so much more controversy to the whole situation. And now it is being said that he will also be let go. So what are your thoughts? Like I said, I will be impressed if he gets to keep his job because it's just too much bad publicity around this. And Red Bull likes to be, like out there, but this is too much. And Ford is also involved. There's a lot of other players involved who, quite frankly, seem to not want to be involved in this drama.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to know what to make of any of it because it's like all speculation and like, we don't really know what's going on. There seems to be like two sides that are forming. It's like the Max and Helmut Marko side, and then like maybe Checo's more on I don't know actually, but maybe Checo's more on the Horner side. It's kind of hard to know what's going on there, but it is crazy. I feel like, it's just a bad look for them. And I keep thinking, is Horner really the reason why Red Bull has been so good? Or is it really just they have a really great car, thanks to Adrian Newey, the brilliant car designer. They have Max, the generational talent, really good F1 driver. Like, do they need Christian Horner? Like, like what really is his influence? I'm sure there's so much that we don't see behind the scenes that he does, but if he's causing all this drama,
Yeah.
like I don't know. I feel like if I were Red Bull, I would definitely consider, letting him go.
Yeah, it's definitely a sport that requires a lot of greatness because, I mean, look at Mercedes. They do have the greatest driver of all time, but they just don't seem to have the car right now, so it's not working for them. Meanwhile, at Red Bull, they have a great driver. They have Adrian Newey. What is Christian actually contributing? Like, what would happen if Christian is no longer there? I'm sure, somebody else has been groomed to take Christian's position maybe in 10 years, but those 10 years are just going to come sooner rather than later. So I don't know. I don't think that Christian really needs to stay with the team if he's causing so much controversy right now.
Right, yeah. And like
Yeah.
this so much of the stuff was leaked and I think it's really telling that Red Bull just like doesn't want to talk about it. Like you
No
would think that
transparency.
if there is nothing to hide, I think they could come out and directly refute
Hmm.
everything, but they're kind of just saying like, oh, like, we trust the investigation happened. Like they're just not really saying like what the investigation was. And
Yeah.
then all those messages got leaked to the press after, so it's kind of a mess. So I feel like,
Someone
they
has
might
a vendetta against Christian.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure a ton of people have a vendetta over Red Bull, right? Like, there's a lot of
Yeah.
people who'd like to see Red Bull crumble because
Hmm.
of their recent success. Yeah, and then there's a lot of talks about what happened to the Red Bull team moving forward. The main person who was really driving the Red Bull F1 team was like the former, I think, like owner or CEO of Red Bull who passed away last year.
Hmm. Yeah.
And he was really the person in Red Bull who was really pushing for the F1 team. So I mean, yeah, who knows what the future holds for the team?
Yeah. And then, Hellman has a lot more pull than I could have even imagined because
He has a lot
when
of pull.
yeah, like I knew he was an advisor and like that's very important. But when Max in the previous weeks had been asked about like, do you support Christian? He kind of brushed it off, like blah blah blah. But when he was asked about Helmut Marko, like what happens if Helmut Marko leaves? He's like, no, he absolutely can't leave. Like the team cannot continue without him. Or no, he said, I can't continue without him. So there's where you could see the difference of like how much is Christian actually needed. And apparently, these contracts are all tied up. So like if Helmut leaves, Max can leave. If Christian leaves, Adrian Newey could leave. So it's very interesting where the allegiances stand.
Yeah.
So we will see, but I can definitely see Max at Mercedes. I'm here for it. Let's switch it up. Let's see what happens when we have somebody else in a Red Bull. Let's see what happens when Max goes over. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would open up a lot of space for all the
Hmm.
young Red Bull junior drivers. Like, there's a lot of people who would love to get an opportunity. Liam Lawson, obviously, who drove for AlphaTauri last year. There's
He
this
deserves a
Japanese driver,
seat.
too. Liam
Yeah.
Lawson deserves a seat. There's a Japanese driver, Ayumu Iwasa, who is pretty good in F2, is now in Super Formula that I would love to see
Yeah.
get
We need
into
to
the
open up
program.
some
Yeah.
seats. Hmm.
I think so. I think like seeing Ollie do so well, I think it just shows it would be really great to have more opportunities for reserve drivers. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was so disappointed about the whole Andretti thing falling off.
Yeah.
Because I think another team would have been really cool for F1, just to give a little bit more space for all the young talent, and just have a little bit more ability. Because I think, unless Carlos gets appendicitis, like Ollie wouldn't have gotten a chance to prove himself, which is
Yeah.
crazy.
Well, there are another 18 drivers that can get appendicitis because Alex had it last year. So
Right.
yeah. No, yeah, that's what I posted this on stories a while back and I said, don't ask me how to figure out the point system because I cannot calculate that. But I feel like there should be maybe 2 races where rookies get to drive in just so we can see their talent and maybe their points count towards the team, but not towards like the drivers' championship. I don't know, but there has to be somebody who could figure this out. If they're building these rocket ship cars, I'm sure they can figure out how to pull in some rookies, not just an FP. F1 and FP2 like that, that's not
In
that
a real
exciting.
race, yeah, just to
Yeah,
see their like
maybe in
race
some
pace
of
and
the
stuff.
sprints, like, some drivers have been very vocal about not wanting to do the sprint races. So can we get them in for a sprint race? It's very similar to the F2 races in terms that they're shorter, but
Yeah,
they're in an F1 car.
I think
Yeah.
that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Someone calculate the points, please. Okay, what else is happening? I had gotten messages sent to me, so I'm gonna see like from my own friends about another change. One of the Mercedes developers is going to Ferrari. So lots of poaching going back and forth. Poaching? Poaching. What
Yeah,
is the word?
poaching.
Poaching.
I think so.
Yeah.
I
Mercedes
wondered if this would happen actually, because like I feel like Hamilton has a lot of pull and he has a lot of the relationships at Mercedes. So I was wondering if he's gonna bring a bunch of people over with him.
Yeah, apparently he's not allowed to take them with him, but what if they want to go on their own?
Right.
Yeah. So Mercedes director of driver development, Jerome, has left Mercedes to join Ferrari alongside Hamilton. So we shall see who else goes with him. Bono is a big question mark. Is he gonna go with Lewis, or is he maybe staying and waiting for Max to come over? This is just
Max and Bono would just be a really crazy combination. So yeah, Bono is Lewis's current senior engineer. He's the one on the radio. They've had a long history and relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it would be interesting to see him with Max. But maybe Max wants to keep his current engineer and bring him to Mercedes. I don't know.
Who knows? Like, where do they stand? But another rumor, supposedly Toto has been in talks because that Mercedes seat was supposed to be for Kimi Antonelli. But now, because talks of Max have opened up, apparently a seat for Kimi Antonelli is being searched for at Williams.
I mean, sorry, Logan Sargent fans, but I don't think he has that long in the sport. So I feel like that makes sense.
I mean, I'm from South Florida, and of course, I would love to see an American driver, a driver from Florida do well, but it's just not there for him.
Yeah, it's just not happening for him right now.
No.
It just hasn't worked out. I don't think it's going to work out. So, and I think there's some other F2 drivers that are American right now. I can't remember exactly who.
Yeah,
but
I don't
I
follow
think
as
there's,
closely.
I think there's more up and coming people. We don't have to put everything on Logan Sargent.
Yeah, well, Kimi
He's just cost the team a lot of money, Like, he crashes the car a lot.
And they don't have that much money, so, I mean, there's cost cap now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think he'll make it to 2025. I'd be surprised if they don't even swap him out, if they swap him out mid-season.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, with who, I guess?
Kimi.
I don't know who. With Kimi?
Does he have to finish his F2 career? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Is he the reserve driver for Williams right now?
No, I don't think he's even a reserve driver whatsoever. Let's see.
Who is Williams' reserve driver right now? Let's see.
Wouldn't it be Mick? Well, Mick is for sure Mercedes.
Oh, it might be Doohan.
Oh, okay.
Jack Doohan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, he's Alpine. Never mind.
He's 17 years old. He's not even 18.
Antonelli, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, such babies. Well, excited for new talent.
Oh, so Williams does not employ its own reserve driver, I'm just reading. So it's whoever Mercedes reserve driver is.
So Mick.
Oh, okay.
Mick Schumacher.
Is Mick still the Mercedes reserve?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
I didn't hear anything.
So it would be Mick maybe if they replace him mid-season.
It's kind of sad not to hear his name tied to any of the seats.
Yeah, I mean, he also cost the team a lot of money, so...
I think that was just, he did not match the car whatsoever, and, I think he needed a little bit more nurturing, and he was not getting that from Gunther.
That's true, yeah. I mean, I think he is getting that a little bit just in the Mercedes system.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have full trust in Mick at this point.
Yeah, I guess some rookies are better than others. Well, I think that's all there is to talk about. There isn't that much news other than, Red Bull. Just, I
Just
think.
the drama. I don't know if you've already talked about like the FIA president
Oh, I
getting
haven't.
some
We can talk.
allegations.
We can talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was like the allegations are around last year's Saudi Arabia Grand
Mm-hmm.
Prix where he had them revoke a penalty that
For
Alonso got. So,
Alonso.
and when I was reading the news, I remember being really confused because he was like on the podium and then he had to give his what is it, trophy to Russell, and then Russell had to give it back to
Yes, and they did on the
Alonso,
social media post where they were taking it from
like taking
like
it and
each of the
bringing it back.
motorhomes. Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember that, and then yeah, this all comes out that he was the one who kind of asked them to revoke that penalty, which
Shady,
is,
shady.
shady stuff. And then I think
Mm-hmm.
I also read that he was actively trying to find ways to get the Las Vegas Grand Prix not to happen, which is
The
also
FIA
kind of
president.
yeah, he was like asking people to like find whatever they could to like prove that it was an unsafe track or something,
Yeah.
which is really weird. Like, why? Like, it was a pretty lucrative, Grand
Mm-hmm.
Prix for them. It was pretty successful. I don't know why he would have asked people to try and like find reasons to like not let it go through. Really
That
strange.
I had not heard that, and I'm definitely gonna look into it. But I mean, we did see that dream coverage come off, and maybe that could have been prevented. Was that like an oversight on somebody's part? Very,
Yeah,
very
or maybe he made that happen on purpose to try and
right,
stop the
right.
Grand
That's
Prix
what
from happening.
right. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. Like he could have been like, it's been checked. Don't worry. On to the next one. That would be crazy. That was so dangerous for Carlos.
yeah,
Like
that was
he was in
dangerous.
pain. Yeah, I mean the Ferrari was wrecked, but yeah, I'm definitely gonna look into this because he's the president. Why wouldn't he want this to happen?
Yeah, crazy.
Well, he does seem to be asking people a lot of favors because he asked Max to supposedly, allegedly, these are all whispers. He asked Max to back up Christian. It's like give him your public support.
Yeah,
And
I did
to
see that
which,
as well.
yeah, to which Max responded like maybe you should do your own investigation or something like that. I love a
Oh yeah.
sassy Max. I love
didn't
Max.
didn't he also say something like, oh, like no one person is bigger than the team or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well,
so
he did say that, but I don't think he that applies to Helmet because he was like, I could not continue without him. I actually watched the press interview because his text was being used as a headline, his quote, but it wasn't taken out of context. Like it was very much like, no, he needs to be part of the team, or I cannot continue without him.
right, yeah, he
Yeah.
clearly feels that Helmet is, more important than
Mm-hmm.
Horner, which is
Yeah.
interesting.
And suppose it was Helmet like doing all these leaks. Like, did he leak the Christian Horner news to the Dutch press to make it seem like it was Max's dad? Like, I don't know. It was just
Yeah, no, it's really unclear. Yeah, I think he was like getting suspended by the team or something for talking to the press,
yeah.
which is yeah, I don't know. That whole
And
team, I
then he
don't know
went
what's
and he
happening.
talked to the press.
Yeah, and what's frustrating is that all this is happening. There's so much drama, and the Red
Yeah.
Bull is still a rocket ship. They're still winning, no problem. Like Max is unfazed, So, you
Mm-hmm.
would think with a team that's experiencing all this turmoil would also not be performing well, but no, they're performing fine.
They're performing better than fine. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this affects because maybe these races had been prepped, strategies had been thought through, but maybe this is going to affect races down the road.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
possible.
Well, let's give our predictions for Australia.
Yeah, Australia. I don't know what to think.
I'm so bad
What
at
are what are
giving
your
predictions.
predictions?
I'm gonna say Oscar Piastri P3.
Ooh.
Max will win, and Charles will get P2.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
saying Max, Leclerc, Russell.
Okay.
Just because Toto was like, yeah, our car has not been good, but I'm 100% confident that we're going to have a good race in Australia. Like, I read a quote, he said 100%. So I'm like, all
100%.
right,
That's a
I,
confident
I,
man.
I believe you, Toto. So, and then, yeah, Leclerc, I think will have a good race. Yeah.
He
For
likes
McLaren, I
Australia.
wishful thinking. I would love Piastri to get like a home podium or Lando to get a
Mm-hmm.
podium. But even Lando was saying that, they thought that the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was going to be the one that suits their car. There's a lot of fast corners, which,
Mm-hmm.
with their setup is where they're good. I think Australia doesn't suit their car as much. So we'll see.
We will see. And of course, we have the Australian Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid, who is not
I
doing
hope he
so
does
great.
better.
Yeah, I
I
hope
know
he
we didn't
gets
really talk about them, but that team, whatever they're called these days, is
B
not
carb.
doing very well.
Yeah, they're not doing great. But I don't know. Like, I feel like Daniel should have almost just have retired, because now if he doesn't get better, he's just gonna go down in history as not being great. Like, I've never experienced him be great as long as I've watched the sport.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, he used to be really good. He showed a lot of promise. And yeah, with even like at Renault and McLaren, yeah, it just
Mm-hmm.
hasn't really gone his way. He probably should have stayed in the Red Bull system, in
Yep.
hindsight. But
Mm-hmm.
what can you do about it now? I think everybody expected him to just be really good again. Maybe see some of the performance that Checo is seeing at Red Bull, or signs that Ferrari kind of
Mm-hmm.
had that turnaround. I mean, he was
Yeah.
unlucky with McLaren. I think the car just didn't suit him, and it was not a very good car. But I don't know what's going on with him right now.
Yeah. Let's see. He's not vibing with Yuki, so that's very interesting as well.
Yeah. And it's funny because like Yuki and Gasly were so close, and they seemed like to have a really good friendship. But I'm sure Yuki's not the easiest to get along with in some ways. So
No, I love his like cameos on Drive to Survive, where he's like, I gotta go work out, and I really don't want to. Like, he just wants to chill
or
or
whenever
eat.
he's asked like what's your dream, everyone else is like to be like the driver, like champion. He's like, oh, to open a restaurant.
A restaurant. I can't. One day I will go eat at his restaurant because I know he will open one.
Yeah, for sure. I hope he
Yeah.
opens one. I hope he realizes his dreams.
Yeah. If F1 is not your passion, give up your seat. There are people who
I
need it
know,
and want
yeah.
it.
There are other people who really want to be the champion.
Yeah. He was
But yeah,
asked in
we'll
a
see.
press. Yeah, Yuki was asked in a press conference. He's like, next time you're given team orders, will you follow them? And he was like, oh, yeah, sure, I will. And like, he smirked. He couldn't even like keep it together. He's like, yeah, probably not going to do that when I'm being a hothead.
Yeah. No, it's funny because he's like probably the least Japanese person you could have be representing Japan in Formula One, because like, we're known for being a little bit more reserved and polite and stuff. But he's just like kind of swearing out the wazoo and just doing
Firecracker.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love it for him, but hopefully he can get it together. Like last year was really unfortunate. He got a lot of P11s,
Mm-hmm.
like so close to points, but not that many points. And then this year he still hasn't gotten points, I don't think. So,
Let's see. I actually
yeah.
have the standings pulled up. No, he has 0.
Yeah, so hopefully, and my hot take for F1 is like, I think there should be points all up and down the grid. Like, I think all 20 drivers should get points. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Make the max amount of points you can get, like, I don't know, 50 points or something, and like have everyone. Because there's a big difference between being P11 and like DNFing, and you get the same
100%.
amount of points. And so across
Yeah.
the whole season, it makes like different drivers like use the skewed perception of them because you get 0 points if you're not in, the top 10.
Yeah, I think that the standings do get calculated on their own, like, because right now Pierre is dead last because he's DNF'd and whatnot. But it's true, if there are 20 spots, there should be, I don't know, like double the points. But I'm not getting into the point system for F1 whatsoever. But you are right. Like, there should be some points, and we know how much 1 point is worth to these drivers. So I think everybody would be way more motivated to get points. Like, imagine Logan being able to finish the season with 5 points versus 0. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
And I think it'll make it more interesting for, us watching it because Verstappen is dominating. There's not that much of a fight at the top. Like, it would make the midfield, competition a lot more interesting if they were actually fighting for points too.
Yeah. I wonder if it just hasn't been that there's been such a domination in the past, and other drivers have been able to even get at least 1 point. But now we're seeing half the grid with 0 points. I mean, it's only race 2, but yeah, maybe this is something they have to consider and just like rework all the points.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that'll make it more interesting. But
I am seeing the drivers right now to see who has points, and yeah, like 7 drivers without points. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's only like a couple teams, right? It's like Red Bull, Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, and
Yeah,
Aston Martin.
like
And then
top
like
four
Haas
teams.
with the 1 point.
Yeah, exactly that. Well, I'm happy Hulkenberg has a point.
Yeah. I mean, it was
He,
a good race for him. Like Magnussen
um,
did well, but he also did well to just like stay there.
yeah, he is a little bit better than K-Mag, so I wonder who will lose their seat next season, if any.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, it's been great having you. We should actually do an episode where we get more technical and you seem to know your stuff so you can teach us all a little
Oh,
bit.
I hope so.
I am definitely here for the paddock whispers and like keeping up with the branding like of Ollie Bearman's YouTube channel, but you can definitely teach us more F101. That's what I call whatever. There's like a little technical term.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I'm still learning myself too, but I think that's
yeah.
what's fun about F1 is you can get into it from so many different angles. You can
Mm-hmm.
just be in it for like the memes and like the wags and stuff, and that all that stuff is fun. But then you could also get like super nerdy about like the engineering of the cars. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a place for everyone, and we're always going to be learning because the regulations are never ending. They're always changing, and we will have new regulations in 2026. So no one will be an expert. Yeah. Okay, anything else? Are we signing off?
I think we're signing off, but thank you so much for having me. I hope
Of
you'll have me
course.
again.
Of course I will. We will plan the next episode, and I guess we will be texting for the Australian race.
All right.
Oh,
Yeah,
I gotta
think
do
it's
my
really terrible time for us on the East Coast.
Yeah, I will be in Europe, so I don't know how that plays into my time zone. So I have to look into
I think it's probably like an early morning race for you then.
I might
Whereas
even be.
for us, it'll be like a midnight type of situation.
Yeah, usually the Australia race is during my birthday, so my birthday's further in April. So usually I watch it, but yeah, it's the calendar's all different this year, but I just remembered I have to sign off. So thank you so much for listening. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple, please rate and leave a review. We will really appreciate that. If you're watching on YouTube, do all the YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, and don't forget the F1 Fantasy League is still going, so make sure you're updating your teams. And we will see you for the next race. Bye.